We thank you, Lord, for this morning, for this opportunity to gather as we launch this German West African Center for Global Health and Pandemic Preparedness. Thank you for our lives and all that you have done. As we gather in your name, and we ask for wisdom, we ask for help, we ask for strength, that we will do this and do this right. We'll have a good outcome, and ultimately it will inure to the benefit of the people whom you have called us to serve. We thank you, because what we ask, we know you will do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much, Doc. This morning, we are here for a great program. We are here to inaugurate the German West African Center for Global Health and Pandemic Prevention, G-WAC. It will go down in history of this university and, of course, our partners, for all the partners coming together to put together this great initiative. Before we invite our provost to give us the welcome address, I would want to acknowledge the presence of our distinguished dignitaries in our midst. Our first to be acknowledged, representing the Vice Chancellor, is the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Kumasi. Please applaud Professor Ellis Owusu-Dabo. The German ambassador to the Republic of Ghana is in our midst, and we are highly elated for his presence. Please applaud His Excellency Daniel Kroll. The provost of the College of Health Sciences, one of the key partners in this project, is Professor Christian Ejari. We have a lot of deans. The Dean for Faculty of Allied Health Sciences, Professor Deborah. I see the Dean of the School of Medical and Dentistry, Professor Daniel Anson. The Dean of our School of Veterinary Medicine, Professor Benjamin Emikpe. And then our director for the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research into Tropical Medicine, Professor Richard Phillips. The director of G-WAC, all the way from Berlin, is in our midst, Professor Wilm Quentin. We also have a lot joining us via Zoom. And when they come, we'll acknowledge them. But of course, Dr. Tobias Chikwe, Professor Manuel de Allegri, Dr. Nikais Indembi, Professor Dr. Clarissa Da Costa will all join us. As we go on, we'll be acknowledging most of the dignitaries in our midst. So if you've not been acknowledged now, don't take offense. Thank you. Time to officially welcome all of us and tell us the reason for which we are here. Please welcome the Provost of the College of Health Sciences, Professor Christian Ejari.
Thank you very much, Mr. Facilitator. The Pro-Vice Chancellor, also representing the Vice Chancellor of the University, the German Ambassador to Ghana, His Excellency Daniel Kroll, Chairman and members of the Advisory Board of German West Africa Center for Global Health and Pandemic Prevention, colleague provosts, deans and directors, the director of G-WAC, heads of departments, our German partners, invited guests, senior members, postgraduate students, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome you all to the official inauguration of German West African Center for Global Health and Pandemic prevention, abbreviated as G-WAC. Ghana and Germany have come a long way when it comes to research, academic, and economic cooperation and collaboration. And today marks another milestone in this important relationship. The launch of German West African Center for Global Health and Pandemic Prevention is a significant milestone in the history of the university's relationship with sister research and educational institutions in Germany, especially G-WAC. G-WAC. This has been set up to address issues which account for the current global upheaval, which has changed our lives significantly almost the past 2 years. That is the COVID-19 pandemic. While this is only the beginning, akin to playing qualifying matches in order to earn a slot at either the Olympic Games or the FIFA World Cup, it is important to point out that arriving at this starting point has not been easy at all. Following a highly competitive process, 3 KNUST consortia, together with their German partners, made it past the first stage and were invited to submit full proposal. For KNUST, this is a clear indication of superior grantsmanship and our competitive research edge, which has been globally demonstrated, especially during this pandemic period. Eventually, 2 of our KNUST German consortia, that is the College of Health Sciences, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Berlin School of Public Health, including Technische Universität Berlin, TUB, Charité Universität Medicine Berlin, and the third institute, Medical Faculty and University Hospital Bonn, joined forces and submitted the final application. This formidable team of academics and researchers won the award from the German Academic Exchange Service, DAAD, which is financed from the budget of the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs as part of the DAAD Global Health Centers Program to establish a German West African Center for Global Health and Pandemic Prevention, G-WAC, based at the College of Health Sciences, KNUST, Kumasi, Ghana. G-WAC will address the existential threat of global pandemics to the health and welfare of people through trans and interdisciplinary research projects targeting both the main drivers of pandemic and the key pillars of resilient health system within the WHO framework using the One Health approach and concept. The establishment of G-WAC is crucial within the context of the current global health crisis brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. The situation is made even more complex by other equally weighty and related concerns, including globalization and its consequences, climate change, natural disasters, ecological crisis, and attendant threats to health system resilience, especially in developing countries. It is these essential challenges that the science of today must rise to contend with. In this light, I conceive of the establishment of G-WAC as being a perfectly timed in this crucial period. I wish to take this opportunity to encourage us to soberly reflect on the weight of our mandate and the need to embark on this journey, radically challenge our collective thinking, test our own assumptions and those of others, in order to able to forge new and robust solutions to these 4 mentioned challenges. The problems of today, given their dynamic nature and far-reaching implications, require very deliberate and innovative steps. To this end, I borrow a quote from Albert Einstein that says, "We cannot solve problems with the same thinking we use to create them." Einstein's meaning is clear and illuminating, conveying a fundamental truth, which is that we must be eager to encourage challenges to conventional thinking and actions, especially in these times where the world is at loss as to the best way to predict, prevent, and respond to pandemics. The center must fully commit to charting a path of doing and conducting impactful interdisciplinary education and research using novel One Health concepts and approaches. Ladies and gentlemen, the center has come at a time when the need for a new ideas fostered from greater collaboration between partners in global health cannot be overemphasized. I'm particularly hopeful that by leveraging the promise of One Health approaches, the center will play a pivotal role in the pandemic risk mitigation, preemptive interventional measures drawn from a broad spectrum of discipline. With G-WAC, we should not be hesitant in shaping our priorities towards pragmatic implementation. A well-laid plan is one thing. A well-executed one is quite another. We should not be afraid to make bold changes if and when the need arises, as we take steps into the unknown. After all, we can only learn by doing. The center is expected to adopt cutting-edge methodologies within the inter and transdisciplinary foci and transcend the traditional confines of academia to include sectors including policymaking, politics, business, civil society, to facilitate a robust exchange and cross-fertilization of ideas. Additionally, it will deepen the already impressive array of collaborative efforts between KNUST and our German academic partners, as well as the extensive networks within which we operate. I anticipate G-WAC will further expand our long-standing collaborations and strengthen existing networks and capacities within the region. G-WAC reaffirms our commitment to deepen, engage, cross-cutting tenets like community engagement, ethics, equity, gender, leadership, and knowledge integration and translation into our methodologies. In recent times, the role and opportunity afforded by big data and the possibilities it opens in artificial intelligence continue to justify the attention and investments it has received. And we must be intentional in harnessing these technological assets within the center. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, I have emphasized the need for innovation, creativity, and speed in one way or the other. I must be direct in mentioning the sustainability of the center, which is very relevant. Consider the truth that every project has an end, a time for evaluation and introspection, and a time to celebrate achievement. However, it is important to note that a project is successful not only when its intended outcomes have been achieved, but also when the outcomes are able to self-propagate. Success should not be final. Indeed, it should be outlive its original architects. We must embed this, we must embed this continuity within the design of the G-WAC, which is the reason why we aim towards establishing a new joint global health PhD training program with focus on pandemic preparedness and prevention, which will help build a caliber of academic and policy makers and advisors in One Health and pandemic prevention and preparedness. Such a program will foster greater cooperation between existing national and international partners in academia, policymaking, public administration, civil society, and other relevant sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, today, as we are confronted with volatilities of globalization, both negative and positive, we have a cause to remind ourselves that in the midst of our differences, whether political, economic, disciplinary, or other domains, our greatest strengths are made manifest when we join forces in pursuit of a worthy purpose, such as the setting up of G-WAC. Therefore, I believe and declare that G-WAC will do well. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for lending me your ears.
Thank you very much, Provost College of Health Sciences. Our next address will be delivered by the Director of G-WAC at the Technology University of Berlin. I've seen the right name given to it in German. And just to be safe, I'm mentioning it in English. When I become conversant with the German name, I will do it. I've been told it's Technische Universität Berlin, if I'm right. So be it. Thank you very much. Shall we please welcome the Director of G-WAC, Professor Wilm Quentin.
Hello. Now, how does this work? I have put the slides. Will somebody? So will somebody put up the slides that I have given? Okay. Yeah. So thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce the G-WAC. I don't know if I need this one. In fact, you can hear me with. Can you hear me? Yeah. Or maybe I take off the mask. Okay. Better. These are not my slides. Can somebody pull up the right slides? Yeah. So I have the honor to introduce the G-WAC, the overall concept of the German West African Center for Global Health and Pandemic Prevention. I feel very honored to be here today, and it is a great achievement that we finally have the possibility to open the center. We have been working already for 6 months to reach to this event, to be able to start the center, and the activities have already started. I would like to have my slides now. Now I have them. Okay, so yeah, perfect. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present the G-WAC. Dear honorable guest of the university, His Excellency, the German ambassador, I have the honor to present the overall concept of the G-WAC, which is of course, firstly, the center that is based at the KNUST and bringing together the partnership between the long-standing partnerships between the German partners from the Technische Universität Berlin, the Berlin University of Technology, the Charité, and the University of Bonn and the University Hospital of Bonn. Each of these partners have had long-standing partnerships, often for 20 years or longer. Our own partnership is a bit shorter, since only 5 years, mostly with the School of Public Health. Other partners had stronger partnerships with the KCCR. So this center really brings together these different long-standing partnerships from from the different German partners with the KNUST into one center to really strengthen our focus on global health and pandemic prevention. However, it includes the partnership with the Robert Koch Institute, which is the German National Public Health Institute, to focus more on the practical relevance also of the research and to reach out also more to policymakers in the African region through networks of the Robert Koch Institute. However, it's not the German Ghanaian Center of Global Health and Pandemic Prevention, but the German West African Center. So we also partner with other partners, including the Africa CDC, the WHO Afro region, and the CARTA network, which is the Consortium for Advanced Research Training in Africa, to expand the reach further to West Africa and other African countries, not only through these partners, but also through our own individual networks with researchers in many other African countries, and also through several Alexander von Humboldt research hubs in different countries in West Africa and other African countries. Of course, the reason why we are opening this Center for Global Health and Pandemic Prevention today is related to COVID-19, which has underscored the relevance of global interconnectedness, because, of course, COVID-19 has illustrated, as probably no other disease in the past, that diseases can cross national boundaries, but also that almost every country in the world has been affected, but also that there's a global, so not only the disease crosses the boundaries, but also there's a global marketplace for many health products, which we experienced when masks were unavailable at the beginning of the pandemic, and now also with the distribution of the vaccine, that richer countries buy the vaccine and it's more difficult for poorer countries to obtain the vaccine. In addition, it shows that in order to overcome the pandemic, it would be important that the response is a global response, and it should be a global response, even though unfortunately it's often not a global response, because the pandemic will only be over if it's over everywhere. However, global health has not only been on the political agenda since the COVID-19 pandemic, but already for several years, in particular also supported by the German government. And this is a picture from the 2017 G20 summit in Hamburg, which is remembered maybe at the global level more by the conflicts between the Trump administration and the rest of the global leaders, and in Germany mostly for the riots that happened in Hamburg, but also for us global health researchers. Of course, it is remembered for having strongly supported at the level of international heads of states, the relevance of global health and the need for global health security, and to support the trend towards achieving universal health coverage in order to support that everybody in the world can receive treatment in the case of disease. And this is in fact one of the topics that has been supported strongly by the German government in the past, also in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals. The focus on health system strengthening, which has for a long time been one of the focus areas of the German government to support health system strengthening, and which has been underlined by the World Health Organization already since the year 2000, but it gained more international traction since the inclusion of universal health coverage in the Sustainable Development Goals, because basically this is a goal that makes health system strengthening more measurable, and therefore progress towards strengthening health systems at the global level can be better monitored and promoted, and therefore generates more interest into health system strengthening. And I mentioned this also because I am a health systems researcher, and there will be more specific talks on virology and microbiology and the pandemic from the Ghanaian perspective later on. But as a health systems researcher, I want to underline this focus also on universal health coverage, and which is included also in the terms of health system strengthening in the German global health strategy. And for the research that we aim to carry out as part of the German West African Center, we aim to focus on both. On the one hand, on the drivers of pandemics, which include, as you can see here, climate change, wild habitat encroachment, virus mutations, wildlife trade consumption, land degradation. And on the other hand, the pillars of resilient health systems, such as effective governance, sustainable financing, reliable health information, appropriate human resource capacity, effective medicines and technologies, and agile service delivery approaches through research, multi and interdisciplinary research that defines research projects to address these different aspects of drivers and pillars of resilient health systems. Therefore, what this slide shows are the different disciplines involved in the G-WAC, which includes health systems and health economics, virology and diagnostics, bacteriology and parasitology, epidemiology and surveillance, community engagement and social sciences, digital health, and zoonosis, which are distributed across the different partner institutions in Germany and all at the KNUST in Ghana. And the partners include, in addition to those that I mentioned on the first slides, where I didn't have more space to put additional logos, also the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and the Free University of Berlin. And the activities that we aim to undertake fall into the areas of PhD training and developing short course programs, supporting exchange programs, strengthening scientific research through multidisciplinary research between the partners, and strengthening international networking. And the more specific activities to strengthen PhD training include the provision of scholarships for 14 PhD students starting in 2022. And we are currently in the process of selecting 7 PhD students, the first cohort of 7 PhD students. The first short courses have already been taking place, where professionals, policymakers, and researchers from different West African countries and Ghana receive scholarships to attend short courses, joint short courses taught by the German partners together with their partners from KNUST here at KNUST. There are numerous exchange programs for PhD students, for master students, and for postdocs traveling between Ghana and Germany to engage in common and joint research projects. And this joint research aims to bring together the different partners to focus on different research areas, but always together the different disciplines from the partners to explore in more fruitful research collaborations the different areas from a multidisciplinary perspective. In addition, an important aspect is the closer engagement with policymakers through the introduction of a West African policy dialogue, where we will bring together researchers and policymakers from West African countries to discuss how to improve pandemic preparedness and prevention of the countries in the West African region. And furthermore, reaching out to influence policymaking through the networks of the center, such as WHO and the Africa CDC, and to improve PhD training through collaboration with the CARTET network. And of course, the research topics are highly relevant at the current situation on the one hand for Ghana, which is the logo here next to KNUST. For the German partners, I had to understand it first that we aim to improve predictability of the disease, to better measure the burden of disease in Ghana, to improve testing capacity in Ghana, to better improve the prediction models of the pandemic trajectory, and to better understand the potential impact of containment strategies, and to development community engagement strategies for being better able to address future pandemics. And the sustainability will come by improving, on the one hand, the capacity building, the testing capacity, the training of researchers and health professionals at the KNUST, to strengthen the knowledge generation through the joint research collaborations, to improve the engagement with policymakers in the region, and to strengthen also the multidisciplinary approaches of researchers, and to bring together the different teams, team up the researchers with the policymakers at the center. So, and this brings me to the conclusion already that the G-WAC will establish this Center of Global Health and Pandemic Prevention at the KNUST, which will engage in trans and interdisciplinary research using One Health approaches to address the existential threat of global pandemics to the health and welfare of the people through targeting both the drivers of pandemics and the key pillars of resilient health systems. And the major outputs or outcomes will include the joint PhD program with 14 PhDs, joint professional development programs, joint publications. We have set the target of more than 30 joint publications to introduce mobility scholarships for a total of more than 140 people who will benefit from the scholarships, and the West African Pandemic and Preparedness Policy Dialogue. So after this overview, thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the collaborations.
Another round of applause for Mr. Quentin. Now, before our next speaker comes, I would want to acknowledge the presence of the following. In our midst this morning is the officer at the Cultural, Press, and Economic Affairs of the German Embassy. Please applaud Ms. Anna Becker. The Regional Medical Officer for Africa at the German Embassy is Dr. Friedrich Belch. The Director at the Center for International Health Protection at the Robert Koch Institute, Germany, is also a professor of health policy at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Please welcome Johanna Hanfield. The head of administration at our own KCCR is Ingrid Sober. Thank you very much for coming. And then we also welcome all the German students in our midst. I intentionally carried out this activity to pave way for our next speaker, who represents the German government here in the Republic of Ghana. For his address, please welcome His Excellency Daniel Kroll.
Good morning. Good morning, Pro Vice Chancellor Professor Ellis Omusu Dabo, Provost Professor Christian Aguirre, CEO of the Teaching Hospital Komfu Anokye, dear distinguished deans and directors of the institutions at the KNUST, in particular, of course, of KCCR, dear distinguished members of the German delegation, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I'm the newly appointed ambassador of Germany to Ghana. I still can't say newly because I just took officially office in September. But I would like to underscore that this is already the second time I'm at Kumasi, and this is the second time at KNUST in this very short time. And I will be back in December. So please, dear friends from KNUST, take this as proof of the importance the German government, the German embassy, and my embassy team and I personally attach to relations to Kumasi and to your academic world here in Kumasi. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you in the coming years. Now, for me, as a humble diplomat of the German Federal Office, it's of course an enormous privilege and honor to take part in this opening and to address such an amazing cluster of academic excellence. And of course, I didn't dare to come alone. So this is why I'm very happy that Dr. Friederike Besch from the German Foreign Service, who is covering the region and supporting our embassies and with her medical competence is with us here today, and also Anna Becker, who will take advantage of being here present at your university for the first time in her capacity to explore future fields of cooperation. So thank you very much to both of you to joining me. Now, I have a good news and a bad news. The bad news is I don't have any slides. Please accept my apologies. The good news is I don't have a 10-page manuscript either. So, but it's certainly a big day for Germany and for Ghana and for the members of the German delegation and the university here. You all have been working very hard to make this happen. And to me, as a representative of the German Federal Foreign Office, I'm very proud that my ministry is among the main sponsors of this very, very important and timely initiative. I understand that we in the first year will provide roughly €500,000 for research stays in Germany. So this is, I think, a very, very important investment. And I, of course, would be preaching to the converted to talk to you about your academic work. But what I would like to take advantage of being here today to just add a little bit of political context to this event. And I would like to underscore that Ghana is for Germany a premium partner in West Africa in many ways. And Professor Christian Aguirre, you started with a reference to football. So please allow me that I continue in this vein. I mean, Ghana is, in 2014, I think all Germans understood the high competence of Ghana when we were struggling very hard in Brazil and almost didn't make it to the final. So we are, I think, both looking forward to the coming championship next year, and it will be an even tighter race, I'm convinced. But Ghana is a premium partner for Germany in many respects. First of all, of course, from my view as a German ambassador in the political field, but not only in the bilateral relation, but we value very much also the role of Ghana's government in the region. And I was very interested to learn that the G-WAC is also not only a center for promoting bilateral cooperation, but that there's also this regional momentum in there. And I think this is very important. And the same applies for the economic field. Also, Ghana is a preferred destination of German foreign direct investment. And it's a very important trading partner in Africa. It's number 2 in Africa, actually. And but again, the interest in Ghana for German industry is also related to the positioning of Ghana inside the African continental free trade area. So again, it's Ghana and beyond. And I think the same applies here with the scientific cooperation. Before coming here, I was briefed a lot about the cooperation money that is invested in development cooperation in Ghana. And I was very little briefed on the scientific cooperation and the cooperation in the field of environmental science. And I was very pleased and surprised to learn how broad this spectrum of cooperation already is. And take my word, I will work very hard that this becomes even broader and more intense in the time I can be working here as a German ambassador. Now, Germans are usually not very well known worldwide for the flexibility. Germans are not so well known for being first movers. But in many cases, Germans are known when they start some cooperation somewhere, they normally say we are here to stay. And I think the research cooperation at this university is a brilliant example of that. I think the cooperation dates back to more than 20 years. So this is not the beginning of cooperation, but this is a corona of the cooperation. And I think it's very important, an important example that over the years, trust and relationships have been built. And I would also like to underscore another particularity, which I think is very important, at least to my very brief observations for the time being. I learned a lot about scientists going from Ghana to the UK and to the United States, and then they are mostly gone. I observe that in the case of Ghanaian and German relation, there's a lot of more brain circulation. And again, GWAC, I think, is a fantastic example. If we look at how this relationship has developed, people that have been took advantage of possibilities to work and research in Germany, then came back and started building up the competence here in Kumasi. I think this is the spirit we should continue. Now, inauguration, of course, there have been very many people working to make this possible, that we are here where we are today. And I would like to thank all of them. Don't worry, I will not name them all. So, but I don't want to discourage all of you, but the biggest workload is still ahead of you. So I would like to wish all of you good luck for this cooperation, the necessary positive spirit. But what I sense in the room, I think it's a fantastic spirit that will hopefully guide the future work of GWAC. Good luck to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Another round of applause for him. And thank you for acknowledging the Ghanaian efficiency in football at the World Cup when Ghana met Germany. I think we played 2-2, right? And it was very difficult for Germany. So if Germany went ahead to win that World Cup, it means by extension, Ghana won the World Cup because Germany never beat any Ghana. Well, Germany didn't beat Ghana, but Germany beat all other teams. But you only drew with us and went ahead to win. So we won with you. We hope to meet at the next World Cup. So to address us next, please let's welcome the Vice Dean of the University of Bonn's Medical Faculty, Professor Gunther Hartmann.
So it seems to work. So good morning, everyone. I have very good news to you. I have many slides. So I hope you enjoy what I have to tell you and the potential that we can bring into this cooperation. Maybe this is a good start, like it goes for 20 years, a good start. But I think, again, this is a good start for the next 20 years. So dear Ambassador, dear distinguished representatives of the university, distinguished representatives of the organizations. It's very impressive, this event here. It's a great honor to be here. I'm representing Bonn University. I think also Berlin University will represent it. And so here it's about what we achieved and what we think is the potential to bring that even further, this type of cooperation. So my name is Gunther Hartmann. I'm the Vice Dean of Research of Medical Faculty of Bonn University. I'm also the speaker of the Cluster of Excellence Immunosensation. That's the let's say, the immunology cluster in Germany, and I'll go more into this. And from there, I think there comes some potential for further collaboration in the direction of immunology. But first, just a few words on about Bonn University. It's an international research university. It is quite successful. It's don't want to go into the details. There's 7 faculties. There's a number of alumni that you might all know. And Bonn is the UN city, as you might know, in Germany. So there's a lot of international organizations. And still, from the political past of being the capital of Germany, there's a lot of impact also on an international level. Now, the medical faculty is a large part of the university. It's about a third in size. We have 3,500 students and number of clinical departments, institutes, a budget of over 1.3 billion euro, and a considerable amount of third-party funding. It's really about teaching, education, and research. We have a lot of number of study programs. So medicine, of course, is the main, but we also have established, of course, dentistry. There's global health, the master study course here. Then immunoscience and infection, microbiology, and neurosciences. So a number of additional study courses that are placed within the medical university that make this research environment so rich and effective. Within our research, we have established several main focus areas for research. And infection and immunosciences really is one of the largest, and infection obviously is very much involved here in G-WAC, all these initiatives. But immunosciences, we put them together because they're closely related, as you can imagine. Then there's other focus areas. I want to go into more details here. We have established the Bonn Technology Campus, which provides a lot of techniques, like most modern research techniques are available here and would also be accessible to researchers, obviously, from the university in Ghana, in Kumasi. What is relevant also to this project is a structure and infrastructure that we have established on clinical research, so we can perform clinical trials in a very controlled fashion. There's the study center, there's a phase 1 unit, we have biobanking and a number of other core facilities. So we are quite successful in basic research, but also translational research. So based on the structure that we have established, we have founded a number of companies that worked quite successfully in establishing new types of therapies. And I'll show you a few more examples of this later. Now, there is a number of collaborative research grants that all together provide a considerable amount of DFG funding. Some of them are also collaborations within Germany, but also internationally. It's like we have close ties also to Japan, to Australia, and obviously other countries as well. In terms of rankings, Bonn does quite well. It is #1 in terms of performance-based resource allocation since 2011 in North Rhine-Westphalia. If it comes to clinical care, we have this second best index of high-end medicine in Germany. And there's also a quite high ranking in terms of whether patients are happy with their treatment. So with this, like more general information about the university and the medical school, I like to briefly introduce you the achievements and also the future potential of our research focus on immunosciences. So this is the Cluster of Excellence Immunosensation. It is established in the context of the excellence strategy of the German government, which put large amounts of money here into establishing such excellence clusters. So it's two 2.6 billion euros for 57 clusters in Germany across all different disciplines, and universities of excellence were established, and there was an additional amount of money to support those 10 universities. Bonn was quite successful. It was actually the most successful university in terms of establishing excellence clusters all over Germany with 6 excellence clusters. That is more as, for example, Bavaria altogether. And the Bonn University has been established, it's established now as an excellence university among those 10 that receive now DFG funding. So it's quite an attractive place to do research on different levels and different directions. So the research focus, immunosensation, was established over the years by continuous support of the university, and is now really seen as an international center of excellence in immunology. Don't want to read those numbers to you, but we have a considerable amount of scientists that are well funded, that are quite productive in terms of publications, additional third-party funding, and translational output. The cluster of excellence is closely connected worldwide, and you can see that Ghana, it's not well seen here on the slide, but this is Africa, and Ghana is, thanks to Achim and others, Achim Hörhoff and others, is really part of this international cooperation, and we like to intensify those collaborations. Strong ties to Australia with the graduate program, to Japan, and we want to expand to Ghana as well. So I guess it's not very good visible here for you. The excellence cluster, what does it do? Basically, the idea is to see the immune system as a sensory system, like hearing, smelling, and so forth. So there's receptors that sense whether there's something right or wrong. And it's all about understanding the regulation of the sensory system. And if you understand how it works, we understand how it, if it doesn't work, and we can establish precise therapies for those diseases that are based on dysfunction of the immune system. And obviously one important area to the excellence cluster got involved as well is the SARS-CoV-2 situation, so the corona pandemic. And I'd like to give you 5 examples how we got involved and what was achieved in this area. So one is that you all know that messenger RNA vaccines have become a very important technology, and there's great hope that this is useful worldwide for also the next pandemics. The technology has been just established with different companies, but based on research that was done at the universities. So there's a molecular switch that you have to use or to eliminate basically molecularly to make messenger RNA vaccines work. So this is basically RNA that you inject, and our immune system detects RNA. And you have to make sure that this RNA is not recognized, and the molecular switches to address these issues have been established here. Go through this. This is a messenger RNA, the structure. It has a 5' end, and there's a molecular structure. I had to load it as a PDF file, so this is why things got lost. So there's a capping structure, molecular capping structure that needs to be added on top of the messenger RNA to make the whole thing work, and this is done by the technology that is used nowadays. So what I wanted to say, to emphasize, is that based on these research findings, the translational activities come into play, into success. And it's often research papers that are in the like a few years in the past that are the basis for such productive developments. Now, the second example is the mass testing for SARS-CoV-2. Jonathan Schmidt-Borg, a newly appointed professor in Bonn, has established the LAMP-seq technology. With this technology, we can put in on one machine 100,000 tests based on sequencing. So this is quite impressive, and I'm sure this could also play an important role in other countries to establish such technologies that are testing on a large scale. Then another project was to establish treatment that is based on nanobodies. So this is not antibodies, it's nanobodies. It comes from animals like this here, and you immunize these animals, and this is very small compounds, and they have been established as specific treatments, molecular treatments. They're very precise against SARS-CoV-2. And published here. It's also commented in the New England Journal paper. So quite promising to have such technology to establish very specific, precise treatments for new viruses. Also, in terms of biomarkers and K cells, the specific immune cells, there have been some important studies to understand innate immunity here. And this is based on a network that is German-wide. And they put together these large data sets to come up with biomarkers for to understand COVID and also to predict the course of the individual disease in patients. And the last example here is really Joachim Schulze, who is leading an initiative, also the West German Genome Center, putting together data all over Germany. It's large data sets, and they develop methods that use artificial intelligence and swarm learning processes to understand such large data sets that are at first seem uncoordinated somehow, but then to conclude very specific readouts from such large data sets that was published in Nature, so a real advance here. So with these examples, I wanted to show you that there's a great potential that we have if it comes to immunology, immunosciences in Bonn. And I'm also here not only to represent the university, but also to stimulate you here in Ghana to be aware that immunology is a very interesting area to work with, and that the close interaction of infectious disease and immunology, immunosciences could also be very worthwhile for the future if it comes to prevention of pandemics. So G-WAC, as I said, 20 years, it's still a start. It's very well established, but there's great potential here, and we'd love to get into contact and to discuss these things further. Thank you very much, and good luck with the project.
Thank you. We would have messages from members of the advisory board, but it will be virtual, pre-recorded, and we'll then close it up with an address by the director for KCCR. But right on the screen, we will show the very first message from Dr. Tobias Chikwe, the World Health Organization's Hub for Pandemic Prevention, Berlin, Germany. So can we have it on the screen, please?
Germany. I've just started as the Assistant Director General of the World Health Organization, leading of the new Pandemic and Epidemic Intelligence Hub. This really is a response to the pandemic that we're facing, just like the West Africa and German Center for Global Health and Pandemic Prevention is a similar initiative, as we all try to find answers to the increasingly complex world that we live in that is driving this increase in infectious diseases. I always think that if I was a virus, where would I love to emerge the most? West Africa really provides such an environment for the emergence of infectious diseases. We have this population growth rate that none of us is proud of. We have, the climatic conditions in the middle of the tropics, you know, the socioeconomic circumstances that none of us is proud of. So we have to react to this. And I love the multidisciplinary approach to the center that has been set up and to the partners that will be part of this great initiative. Of course, I wished it was in Nigeria when I first heard the announcement, but you know, we joke about these things. Ghana, Senegal, Ivory Coast, anywhere it is in West Africa, we're really proud to be associating and working with our German brothers and friends in tackling this, the many diverse circumstances that lead to the emergence and re-emergence of infectious disease. So I'm really happy to be associated with this center. I look forward to working with you way into the future. I wished I could have been in Accra today, but I'm thinking of you throughout the day as you launch this center, and I look forward to thinking with you and with the many other colleagues working intensively in making this center successful as we build together for the world that we will have to live in for many more years to come. So have a great launch today, but most importantly, let's think together how to make this not just one of the several initiatives that are launched around the world, but one that will make a fundamental difference to our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tobias Chikwe. Next board member to give us his message is Professor Manuela De Allegri from the Heidelberg Institute for Global Health. Can we have it on the screen, please?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Manuela De Allegri, and I'm the leader of the research unit on health economics and financing at the Heidelberg Institute of Global Health in Germany. I'm very sorry not to be with you in person today, but I'm also very, very pleased to be part of this group as an advisory board member. I believe that the German West African Center for Global Health and Pandemic Prevention will make a substantial contribution to the generation and dissemination of evidence on pandemic preparedness, in particular in relation to health financing. Why do I say that? As a health financing expert, of course, you could say my view is biased. I believe that the way we collect, we pool, and we spend resources is fundamental in directing provision of health services. And what we have learned through the experience of the COVID pandemic is that standard health financing mechanisms are not sufficient to take care of our health systems' efficiency and effectiveness in times of crisis. And then we need to be able to look for new solutions in order to create stronger health systems, more resilient health systems. Therefore, as I said earlier, I'm extremely pleased to be part of this group, and I look very much forward to meeting all of you in person one day. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Our next message is from the professor at the Center for Global Health. We are talking about Professor Dr. Clarissa Prazereza da Costa.
So, dear representatives from the Ghanaian Health Services, the WHO, Africa CDC, and dear researchers and colleagues from KNUST and Bonn and Berlin. First of all, I would like to congratulate you to your success of having obtained this prestigious award from DAD to find the German West African Center for Global Health and Pandemic Prevention, the G-WAC, as you call it. So your outstanding concept has obviously convinced the reviewers, and I think me as well. And being an immunologist and NTD researcher and also co-founder of the Center for Global Health here at Technical University, I'm particularly glad to see your endeavor to work in an interdisciplinary manner. So you have combined disciplines, and they range from health systems and economics to virology, parasitology and zoonosis, to digital health and social sciences. And for sure, I think this is a great challenge, but one that is absolutely necessary to face. Also considering that you have chosen a One Health approach as underlying concept. I'm also looking very much forward to your next steps in the upcoming months. And as I have read, this will be project implementation where you will draft the specific research questions. And I'm sure that the outcome will be inspiring. So our university, the Technical University, has a long-time cooperation in such future-oriented areas like water and energy research, environment, mobility, and as well as global health with KNUST. And as a representative of this university, I'm very happy to report, and some of you know this already, that KNUST and the TUM have engaged officially in a partnership for innovation and sustainable development end of 2018. So in the long term, this partnership will contribute to a deeper understanding of global challenges, such as pandemic preparedness and pandemic surveillance, as you are doing, and will develop technical and scientific solutions, especially using entrepreneurial approaches, which I think is one of the strengths of our university. So all in all, for sure, this partnership will provide ample opportunities also for our Center for Global Health to engage with your center at KNUST. And I wish you hereby a lot of success with your kickoff meeting and look forward to see you all soon again in person. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor Da Costa. I would want to acknowledge other members of the advisory board. And here we are talking about Dr. Nikais Indembi, Africa CDC, Jegen May of BNITM, Marcel Tanner, Director, Swiss TPH, Professor Dorothy Yebuamenu, Director, Noguchi Memorial Institute, Dr. Patrick Abake, Director, Veterinary Services, Delise Mimi Dakon, Director, FDA, Franklin Esiedu Bequin, Director, Division of Public Health, Ghana. And then now on behalf of the whole board, I would want to invite the Director of KCCR, who is also a member of the advisory board, to sum up the messages. Please welcome Professor Richard Phillips.
The Pro-Vice Chancellor, Professor Elisu Sudabu, His Excellency Daniel Krug, Ambassador for the Federal Republic of Germany, and other dignitaries from Germany. The Provost College of Health Sciences. I want to stand on the existing protocols and to carry on with my short message. I feel honored to be invited to participate in this inauguration of the German West African Center for Global Health and Pandemic Preparedness, G-WAC, and also to serve on the advisory board. I wish to congratulate all the partners that worked tirelessly at putting this initiative together. And I wish to also congratulate DAAD and the German government for providing the backing for this collaboration. That's the funds needed to put together this center that is aiming at putting activities that will end up training PhDs and bridging the knowledge gaps of our times. And I'm positive that this collaboration is likely to be sustainable if we, KCCR, is used as an example. For KCCR next year is 25 years old. And yes, and the German government, together with KNUST, put together that joint venture. And we are all aware of the impact KCCR made during the pandemic. And many people who didn't know the center existed now know that KCCR exists, and we were the two main centers that provided testing for the country, Ghana. So I think that alone is enough evidence that this collaboration is going to continue. And I'm also pleased to say that already over 80 graduates have been trained on that platform alone, PhD students and master students. And most of the PhD students have already been taking on as faculty in the university. So that alone is also evidence that this collaboration is likely to continue. So I'm happy to be part of this, but I want to draw our attention to a few issues. That in 1963, Aidan Coburn, and I quote in his book that he wrote on evolution and eradication of infectious diseases, said, "We can look forward with confidence, with considerable degree of freedom from infectious diseases at the time and not too far in the future. Indeed, it seems reasonable to anticipate that within some measurable time, the major infections will have disappeared." And that was what he said at the time. But in 2008, Fauci and others in Nature came out with an article that reported 335 infectious diseases between 1940 and 2004. So the initial statement wasn't right at all. And there are several reasons why infectious diseases will continue to emerge. And it's also because of the unprecedented worldwide population growth, urbanization, international travel, food processing, handling, agricultural practices, bioterrorism, microbial evolution. So many factors tell us that there's going to be emergence of more infectious diseases. So it's good that we are bracing ourselves for the next decades ahead. But despite the increasing likelihood for new infectious diseases, there's not been commensurate increase in capacity, especially on the African continent. And in the World Economic Forum, it was noted that Africa currently has 198 researchers per million people, 198 per million. Compared with 428 in Chile alone, and over 4,000 in the UK and the US per million. But to achieve just the world average for the number of researchers per capita, the continent needs another 1 million new PhDs. And the situation is even getting worse because of the lack of opportunity. Africa sees itself losing about 20,000 professionals to high-income countries every year. And so it tells you about the current situation in terms of capacity building. The University World News also published that currently researchers are concentrated in a few countries: Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa. And it knows that Africa produces only some 27,000 papers a year, about the same volume of published output as the Netherlands. African researchers produce only 1.8% of the world's total scholarly publications, perform even worse with inventions. Science, technology, and innovation are prerequisites for development, and this gap needs to be bridged. The pandemic has already taught us a lot of lessons that no single institution or country can do this. Indeed, the situational analysis as laid out in the new regional health strategy of Africa notes the poor distribution no cross-talking between centers of excellence, the low critical mass, and the issue of even retaining the capacity that we build, collaboration, issues with collaboration, harmonization, and coordination we need to look at if we want to make a lot of progress. G-WAC is laudable and will help in addressing these gaps that are highlighted, and it's very much encouraged. As we move on to establish this collaboration, it's my fervent hope that further growth in partnership will be achieved. More students and faculty on both sides will be trained, and new groundbreaking research will be the outcome. This we are committed to helping to make it a reality. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Prof. Phillips. KCCR was one of the outstanding units in the country, and especially in KNUST, that kept the name of the university flying, because anytime they needed to be an expert opinion on COVID and how we're managing it, all you heard was KCCR or Noguchi. So we had Augustina Silverkin, Michael Owusu, John Amwesi, and the rest, always keeping the name of KCCR and the university by extension high up there. Thank you very much. We would want to acknowledge the presence of Dr. David Anambam, Regional Director, Ashanti Region of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Thank you very much for coming. We also recognize the presence of the Dean School of Public Health, Professor Samuel Newton. And for the hundreds who have joined online, we welcome all of you and thank you for your presence. The program has put together a custom-made poetry recital, and it will be delivered by our good Kojo Awotwe. Shall we please welcome Kojo Awotwe?
Ago. The simple response is Amen. Ago. Oh, ago. Can I get a smile? This smile can take me a mile. Can you do it in a grand style? Hello. I'm testing my mic and I'm trying 1, 2, 1, 2. If you can hear me, please say I do. It is you I greet. My message puts me to my feet. So don't bother to offer me a seat. He shared a message so sweet, so I tweet. Once as he spoken, but twice I heard and repeat. Ago. Oh, ago. Let me take you back. Back to back, back on track. Used to sing a song. Wana koko na watu. Wana koko na watu we. Na watu we. Na watu we. Nkusia bebreo. Wana koko na watu we. Wana koko na watu we. Wana koko na watu we. Na watu we. Na watu we. Nkusia bebreo. Wana koko na watu we. Silence that were too noisy was heard by the ears that were too nosy. In the midst of the dim, where life becomes an unsolvable logarithm, crying becomes a lovable rhythm. When night falls in daylight, looms and zooms closer to our rooms. And when the world glooms, and the answer is not in the power of our brooms, hear me, for I come not to speak boom, but love my words for the rather groom. Yo chiame, yo nyame chiame, Chedi ampong pame chiame, nyame chiame, o nyame asama mama me, tube den wa chiame. I am the voice of the invisible that makes the thoughts of the unseen audible. So I carry a message that massages the hearts of the coward to obtain courage. I go. Oh, I'm halfway. I go. Come to tell you stories, sweet as coconut. But I'm not a coconut seller, I'm just a storyteller. I stand on the stages and I tell you stories flipping through the pages of the ages. Indeed, yesterday was tomorrow that became our past. And I remember, oh, I remember. I remember when the old told us of the bold. The storytellers of our time were time travelers. They told us stories before time, in time, and after time. And time after time was a great movement of story time. It all happened when soon we bid farewell to our noon. And when the dark clouds swallow the skies, the moon marries the starry skies. That was when we ran towards the bonfire. That was where stories never retire. But the old carry stories on their heads like kaya. Oh, I remember the stories they shared. That was told us by the gray hair. And to you I share, so you can have your wisdom share. So I come to tell you stories of the unknown to the known, stories of the unborn to the grown, sounding in a very beautiful, terrifying tone. Stories that set fire in the bone. So tell the gong gong beater to beat the gong gong and tell the world that it should sing along. And before our world is gone, let's stand tall like a long gone and sing the victory song. So we learned something. That when the sun died and the moon became and the stars became the sky's new bride, your love twinkled with pride. Then we realized that darkness can never overcome light. So together, we are the world's light. And together we will shine brighter when we are together. When we put our minds together, yeah. When we put our weight together, when we put our strength together, we become stronger, carrying the world on our shoulders. So I quote Charles Darwin. That the world has prevailed by collaboration. Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, we'll modify the program a bit. And what I will do is would invite the rep of the Vice Chancellor for his address. Ladies and gentlemen, shall we please welcome the Pro-Vice Chancellor of this university, Professor Ellis Owusu-Dabo, for his address.
Your Excellency, Provost, College of Health Sciences, the representative of DAD and other colleagues represented. Before I read the speech of the Vice Chancellor, permit me to make a few remarks, and these remarks are mine. I don't want to be dismissed for not reading the speech of the Vice Chancellor. So, but first, let me say that I am delighted, particularly because in this room, crew, I'm seeing some of the very fine colleagues from Germany in the person of Herr Herhoff, Professor Achim Herhoff, Herr Drosten, are two fine gentlemen that we have worked with over the years, for the last 20 years and over, and they have greatly amplified and demonstrated true collaboration. And colleagues, with your indulgence, a round of applause for these two fine gentlemen that I personally attest. I've said this to them many times. It's not because of this occasion. I've said this at several fora, that they have demonstrated what true collaboration is all about. In the last 4 or 5 years, I've also met Professor Wilm Quentin, and he is directly working very, very closely with the School of Public Health. And I'm hoping that, Wilm, you will emulate the example of these patriots to the Federal Republic of Germany. I am delighted for several reasons. One, the fact that we have journeyed together over the years. And Your Excellency, please do not get tired coming to Kumasi. We will definitely make sure we refresh you and get the symbol of collaboration going between Ghana and Germany. So I'm excited about the fact that we have worked together and we have demonstrated true collaboration. And the reason why I believe that the establishment of this German West African Center for Global Health and Pandemic Prevention will succeed. I'm also excited because a couple of years back, maybe, I don't know, 7, 8 years back, we wrote a proposal to the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, and we were looking at emergency preparedness and pandemic prevention. This proposal was received, and I remember that we got a call from CDC saying that they were going to give us $10 million to do this. Then I was director of KCCR, $10 million to do this. After a couple of weeks or so, Dr. Amwesi, if you remember, we got a call to say that actually, due to tight budget and so on and so forth, the project's funding would not be able to cover. And I had already alerted friends in the Ghana Health Service about the news, because obviously that was such a great piece of news for us. After that, we tried with the World Bank. We submitted a grant. We were shortlisted on emergency preparedness and pandemic prevention. And then we got to the final stage. They came, we submitted this together with the with the emergency medicine establishment. We got to the final stage, and then we didn't get it. Too bad. Finally, we got another call, and then we said, okay, let's try again. And for the third time, we failed, which is why I'm truly delighted that the German government, through the Federal Ministry of Education and Research, among others, are supporting the establishment of the center. And with those remarks, let me quickly go ahead and stand on existing protocols whilst I read the Vice Chancellor's speech. It gives me great pleasure to be here this morning on the occasion of the launch of this all-important German West African Center for Global Health and Pandemic Prevention. Let me, on this note, extend a word of appreciation to all of you who have come from far and near, particularly our friends from Germany, with whom we have evolved together as far as true collaboration is concerned. 6 months ago, I was informed by the provost of the College of Health Sciences about the award of a 2.7 million euro grant by the German Academic Exchange Service, DAD, to establish a German West African Center for Global Health and Pandemic Prevention at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Subsequently, we had the engagement with the ambassador on this subject and what it means to both Ghana and Germany. The center he mentioned was being set up to address existential gaps and threats as far as global pandemic is concerned, and obviously sought the welfare of humans, animals, and the interaction among these through interdisciplinary research, as has been clearly mentioned earlier by the provost of the College of Health Sciences. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has already changed our world decisively and forced us to think while leaving us with painful lessons, but providing us with opportunities for transformation. This current pandemic has touched and changed almost every facet of our lives. It has hobbled economies, strained societies, changed the way we work, touched travel, and the manner in which we communicate. It has taught and continues to teach us and questions our very ways of living and doing things. At the same time, it has provided us with opportunities for many in our societies. While it has rapidly elevated some industries, especially those in the technology sector, it has pushed some others toward near obsolescence. Ghana and many African countries have suffered from the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and are likely to experience the worst forms of these pandemics in the future if we do nothing as far as planning for our future is concerned. The continent has already lost over 222,000 individuals to this pandemic. And I do know that compared or relative to other places, perhaps this is not the way to do this comparison, but we do not want or seek a single life lost. Although Ghana's approach has been comprehensive, focused on saving lives, protecting the poor and the vulnerable, and rebuilding in better ways, I must at this point agree with Petra Nemkova that indeed we cannot stop disasters, but we can arm ourselves with knowledge. So many lives wouldn't have to be lost if there were enough disaster preparedness, end of quote. As a country, and more specifically as an institution, arming ourselves with knowledge means several things. The following at least come to mind: collaborative work, multidisciplinary approach to problem solving, innovation and teamwork. Hence the research approaches, collaborations, scientific conferences, training, capacity building, students and staff exchanges in a North-South as well as South-South collaborations at this center will go a very long way to helping both countries. I would say that these are the necessities in advancing knowledge. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, this center is therefore here at the right place, at the right time, and hopefully to do the right things. A time to enable us to detect, respond, and prevent outbreaks of emerging and re-emerging infections in Africa. The reason is pure and simple. We cannot prevent human, animal, and environment interactions. While of all emerging pandemics, more than 2/3 arise from these interactions. This is why I'm particularly delighted that the KNUST is one of the 2 sites in Africa to host such a center through collaboration. And let me mention particularly the Berlin School of Public Health and the Medical Faculty of Bonn, as has been clearly demonstrated through the earlier speakers, and applaud your efforts in this endeavor. This center will not only serve to prevent, plan outbreaks of infectious diseases, but enable us to achieve good health and well-being and quality education as enshrined in the Sustainable Development Goals 3 and 4. Let me challenge you, faculty at this center, to address also the SDG 5. And I'm sure that you make a deliberate and intentional approach to ensuring that we address the issue of gender, especially now that we do have the first female vice chancellor after 70 years of existence as a university. Now, the big question is, how do we sustain this? And I'm happy that the others or previous speakers addressed the issue of sustainability. Oftentimes, these funded projects with donor monies leave existential problems of funding gaps at the closure. However, I would like to charge you to have a clear identity as a center and think about sustaining this engagement beyond the funding period. I will urge schools and faculties to collaborate to ensure that we integrate issues of sustainability right from the outset. One that is noted for specific epidemics and draws strengths from historical and recent pandemics. Staying focused on your identity and core mandate is key and will help in building collaborations for sustainability. Once again, the collaborative networks, the research and exchange programs that this center will further strengthen KNUST's vision of remaining a global competitive, research-intensive institution for the advancement of science, technology for industrial and social uptake, particularly spearheading the 4th industrial revolution in Africa. This will in no small means ensure the attainment of our vision and mission as a university. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the launch of this center has come at a time that KNUST is celebrating her 70 years of existence with the theme, 70 years of global impact, a new age for a renewed focus. The university is poised to become one of the best universities in the world and therefore determined to build and strengthen human resource capacity building, develop impactful research and innovations, improve our digitization, embark on infrastructural development, and improve resource generation and management. The university remains open to collaborative research that will impact life and improve livelihoods. I hereby invite you to take advantage of your visit to look around our beautiful campus. And I do know that many of you have visited in the past, but there are also some of you who are visiting for the very first time. And I implore you to do so during your downtime. Ladies and gentlemen, it is at this juncture that I would like to use this pleasant opportunity to thank the German government for the immense resources and funding support that they have made available to KNUST over the period. And here, as former director of KCCI, I still remember during the recent past of the Ebola pandemic, how together we managed to get some money to train and equip research laboratories in 6 African countries in West Africa. And you continue to do so. And I want to applaud the German government for their immense contribution as far as fighting pandemics are concerned. I was hoping for a round of applause for that. If the Germans won't clap, I was expecting Ghana to clap alone, but we got both clapping. We appreciate your kindness. And obviously, for choosing to support the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Working through all channels, my hope and my belief is that we will not fan the flames of despair from this pandemic, but rather we will ignite hopes for building a stronger and better future that will lift both of our countries from the doldrums and repercussions of this current pandemic. And we believe that through this, the rest of Africa will learn from Ghana's experience and from this true G-WAC collaboration. To our team of experts, let me take this historic opportunity to count, knowing that what counts in life, quote, what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life that we lead. And that quote is from Nelson Mandela, one of our great leaders, if not the greatest in Africa. On this note, from Nelson Mandela, let me say, feel welcome to Kumasi and to our institution. And I want to thank you so very much for your kind attention, and do hope that G-WAC has come to stay and will be one shining example living beyond the footsteps of the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research in Tropical Medicine, among other centers of excellence in Africa. Vielen Dank. Thank you, and Akwaba.
Thank you, Pro Vice Chancellor. This time the applause was loud. I heard it, so you have it. We're going to have 3 presentations in succession, each to run for a maximum of 10 minutes. So let's brace ourselves up for the presentations. Our very first is on the topic, the viral threat, current and future pandemic. To present this, shall we please welcome Professor Christian Drosten.
Good morning, dear Pro Vice Chancellor Ellis, dear Provost Christian Aguirre, dear Mr. Ambassador Krull, dear colleagues Gunther, Wilm, Achim, Johanna, John, Alex, Ben, Augustina, Michael. Let's take Richard's speak seriously. I really liked Richard's speech a lot. So I really think it's important during all the work we are intending to do to really look at capacity building. This is really an issue in research projects like this one, a big project that could lead to discoveries and publications, but that should also lead to new capacities established here and capacities, capabilities remaining here, including people. So this is really something we have to take in mind. I liked Richard's speech very much. Okay, can I have slides? Yeah. So I was asked to speak a little bit about the broader topic of pandemic preparedness research with regard to viruses. I will. So in this whole field of exercise, what we are considering important is, first of all, diversity, biological diversity of viruses in reservoir hosts. But this is only the chapter 1 of the textbook of evolution, diversity. Like in classical biology, we consider the same things, but then we have processes. One is the sporadic acquisition of viruses by humans classically, but also by livestock. We'll come to show this. But then the adaptation, the forward adaptation of agents to humans. These are 2 essential steps that make up the concept that we, well, with a little bit of blur, address as the species barrier. This is our working model. I'll provide you some examples, some insights. So for instance, we're still puzzled about where SARS coronavirus 2 comes from, but at the same time, we know for SARS coronavirus number 1, it's these carnivores that are typical of the Palearctic region, mainly then in Eastern Asia, These carry the virus. There have been studies all over the place, and there is an exploitation of this resource, which you can see here. So if you buy products like this, you are using Chinese raccoon dogs, and these are a reservoir for SARS coronaviruses. There's a species of viruses to which SARS-1 and SARS-2 belong. And based on ecological knowledge, we know that species of animals use very similar ecological niches usually. And we are more and more discovering that this is also true for disease agents, including viruses. So if this is the same species, we can say with some certainty that there is a similar reservoir connection. So this virus is certainly not coming from a lab. It's very unlikely. It's more likely that this virus comes from such a situation. And we have scenarios like this for Africa as well. For instance, Ebola virus, we know it's certain types of fruit bats. You see in this paper examples of these fruit bats. These are all dead animals. They look like this when they are alive. We caught them on campus here on KCCR, on KNUST campus. This is a hammerhead flying fox. And the next one is well, doesn't switch. Yeah, this is a small fruit bat, an Ippomops. So they are here on campus. We are seeing different types of use of these animals in Ghana, but across Africa. So they are a part of the diet, basically. Wild game is considered part of the diet. In some cultural contexts, is considered a very precious, exotic, and valuable source of food. So we've looked at this over many years here in a succession of projects in which we also established not only the fieldwork capacity. Many of you will remember we were working with Sam Ophong here and his team. That was really intense work in the field. And then establishing the lab capacity here at KCCR. Looking at these animals in the wild, this is basically not very wild. This is the zoological gardens here in the middle of Kumasi. All of you know this colony of Eidolon fruit bats. They are flying off to feed in the evening from the zoo. These are not zoo animals, for those who don't know this. They come in to breed for about half a year, and then they leave to the southern parts of the African continent. They are migratory animals, and they are full of viruses. This is the Kumasi Central Market, just almost next to the site where these animals are sitting. And the feces of these animals are full of viruses. We've done virome studies all over the place. We published the first paper on this, I think, in 2011. And from then on, we had a succession of papers of viral diversity in these and other wildlife sources in Ghana, in collaboration with colleagues here from the university. This is showing part of the pioneer field work that was then taken to a higher level. We have examples of this spillover that I was showing. So the two-partite nature of the species barrier, the first step, humans acquiring initial infections. And Tabea, who is sitting here in the audience, did this as part of her PhD work together with Augustina and Michael. The Kumasi raptovirus, a virus we isolated in cell culture from these bats, and we showed that, in fact, humans exposed to these bats are seropositive. So we see infections, but we do not know this virus outside Kumasi in humans. We don't know it in Germany or other parts of Africa. What I want to say is these spillovers are rare. It doesn't mean they are taken forward. So once humans acquire viruses from wildlife, that's only the first step. And this doesn't cause any epidemic or pandemic situation. Many of these processes may be completely irrelevant from a clinical point of view. We don't know. There is room for clinical studies here. What we know is the actual pass through of viruses to humans is livestock. In almost every scenario of viral emergence, we can say it's a livestock species that really brings the virus to humans from the wildlife world. This, for influenza, you know, it's wild waterfowl and then the pork industry. For another disease, MERS, that's more relevant to Africa, it's the camel. So we can now say where we have dromedary camels, we have this virus. This is a kindergarten disease in camels with very low pathogenicity, transmitted to humans, so that there is, well, in clinical situations, a very high mortality. In the normal population, little mortality. We know by now, based on very limited studies, that there is seroprevalence, true seroprevalence in Africa. This, for instance, is a study we did in Kenya. We can't find this in Ghana, obviously, because there are no dromedary camels, except in the very far north. We've never really managed to go there. We looked at other livestock species during our field work across Ghana. And so then to complete this principle, we are seeing outbreaks of these viruses. For instance, this is a MERS outbreak in South Korea, was exported there. And often these outbreaks only appear once they are exported from the region of endemicity where they don't appear, where there is little surveillance, little attention. But then we have an outbreak like this with 4 generations of transmission and many fatalities and a big effort to control. And the biggest worry in these outbreaks, and that's another independent question, is the gain of fitness of these viruses along the transmission chain. So human-to-human transmission chains, to monitor these transmission chains for the appearance of new viruses, or maybe for the modification of fitness of existing viruses, is another independent subject in infectious diseases epidemiology that is now really coming up. And we need hospital-based surveillance in countries like Ghana. We have already projects up and running in this direction. For instance, the Pandora EU project that we are running here has tried to do this, but was a little bit stuck by the pandemic now. But we are recruiting and we are testing. It's an interesting subject. So to summarize this, we have some knowledge gaps here. One is aerosol transmission. So all of these viruses that are really of interest, they are airborne, and we lack models, we lack knowledge about infectious doses. We actually don't know a lot about the environmental components, so what drying or what air humidity contributes. Then population susceptibility to any given reservoir-borne virus. So is there cross-reactive antibodies in the population for this virus X that we see in animals? We don't know. In many cases, in most cases, the answer is no. Then the sporadic transmission. So can we get a quantitative assessment of these exotic events that we think are rare, but probably are much more common than we think? How often do they occur and where? How can we do surveillance at all? How is this possible? This is not a normal business of veterinarians. And then on this basis, how to come up with interventions. And then the next thing is the phenotype of reservoir-borne viruses. So it's becoming more and more redundant. It's almost becoming difficult to publish studies like this, where you take wildlife samples and just sequence into these samples and find viruses all over the place. This is becoming more and more trivial. What we really need to understand is which of these viruses can do harm to humans. Can they infect human cells? And if so, is this sufficiently efficient? Is there a phenotypic differentiation among all of these viruses, or are they all the same as long as they belong to the right species of viruses? The answer certainly is no. So the phenotypic characterization here is a completely open field. This is true virology. Okay, so you see I'm enthusiastic for this type of work. I know you are as well, and I'm looking forward very, very much to collaborate with you on this.
Our next presenter is presenting on the topic Progress in NTD Elimination as a Litmus Test for Universal Health Coverage. Please welcome Professor Akim Haref.
Dear audience, dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm just not repeating what Christian has so nicely introduced, but imagine I give the same address to you all. with all the names of the dignitaries here. And I'm very happy that we actually have come together despite the pandemic, and that we have been able to secure the funding for the G-WAC. And as you have heard by Professor Alice Owusu, that there has been already in the past, obviously, the attempts to give attention to this topic. And this, I mean, has been the problem, I think, worldwide, that too little attention has been given and too little funding has been around. And so we are all the more grateful that we can do this. And I would also like to pick up where Professor Richard Phillips has brought us to say that we have to make sure that we need to develop options, career options for the students that we teach, and where we help them to gain knowledge that they come back. And actually what we have seen in the 20 years is that this has actually been successful. It would not have been successful if the KNUST would not have been a harbor for those who have graduated as a PhD to become lecturers and to make their own careers. And so I think one has also to be very thankful for the investment that the state of Ghana has made here, so that we can always ping pong upon each other. And I will show you a few slides later in my talk. So my topic, the presentation is here, is to make you aware that obviously we center a lot about the pandemic prevention and being braced for new pandemics to come. But this also resides on several pillars of infectious diseases. And as we'll have learned by Wilm, and we'll still have the talk by John, there's obviously also the social science components that he will develop with Walter Bruchhausen, who is in Bonn, doing the social science components of global health. And I think this is also very important. But the neglected tropical diseases have been recently more been regarded as a litmus test for a resilient health system. And this slide I owe to our program that we submitted in order to receive the grant, is to show that the NTDs are on one thing a trigger and threat to health systems, and on the other hand, if we control and address them, we provide health systems options to be more resilient. And this has also been acknowledged by the UN. And Wilm has already mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals. And number 3.8 is universal health coverage. And what does universal health coverage, should I use this? Is this better? What should universal health coverage essentially do? It means that the poor people should not have to pay for the treatment. So there is no out-of-pocket payment, and all the states that have signed this charter with the Sustainable Development Goals oblige themselves to provide a health system that can protect the poor so that they don't suffer because they cannot afford their treatment. And in this case, it's in this context, it's very important to see the entities. And the new roadmap that I have put here, I owe this to Mwele Malecela, the NTD director of WHO, who we invited to become an advisory board member. And if her health allows, she will do that maybe later in the running of this project. And one of the major new advances of the new roadmap is that we don't only say we want to eliminate, period, and this means 100%, but that we, the WHO engaged on a quantitative plan, bringing up several benchmarks like 90%, 90% fewer people requiring interventions, 2 entities eradicated. So and so many countries have eliminated at least one. So these are realistic benchmarks to which WHO has now come to. And I think that is something very important. And the other one is the program ownership. The endemic countries should own the programs. And this, of course, means that they have to develop also the systems and the capacity. And then we have a stronger, more resilient health systems. And they are also capable to be more capable to be braced, as you said, Richard, for new threats like new pandemics. And this is why we have these several pillars like viruses, NTDs, and we'll also have antimicrobial resistance as a more silent, but also a pandemic. And this is important to improve the health systems, because where the NTDs are is usually where the road ends. This is one picture of our one of our projects, not so far from here in the Dungpa area a couple of years ago. Maybe the situation has now improved. But we are still faced with a lot of morbidity as a sequelae of some of the infectious diseases. Take filarial diseases worldwide. And you all know, for example, the sequelae of lymphatic filariasis, hydrocele, and lymphedema. And morbidity control in this context is something where the responsibility lies more or less completely on the endemic country to do something for these patients. Now, it has been mentioned several times that we have a long-standing collaboration, and it's really true, and we have discussed that with Your Excellency this morning, Ambassador Krull, how we can make it happen that people actually that have started master or PhD degrees come back. And I think our colleagues of today are the good examples that this does work if the university provides the position and the possibility to actually make your career. And then the brightest minds will do a very good career, as you know from our colleagues. So 2 years ago, nicely before the pandemic, so we could have pictures without masks, we had the a memorandum of understanding with the then Vice Chancellor and our Vice Rector to provide collaboration also with the University of Bonn. And he told us that there have been already many collaborations with other universities, and we've heard a lot about this today. And I think without a broader network that KNUST had already established, we on the German side could not have come together networking, because if I have a connection in KNUST and my colleagues have a connection in Cameroon, we cannot put our lots on one center. But this was one of the prerequisites why we could set this up here at KNUST. Now, what has been done in the last 20 years in our groups, and notably in the partnership with Professor Alex Debra, and this was establishing new treatments against filarial diseases. You have just seen how many millions are still infected, and we are still lacking treatments that kill the adult worms. So if you have those cycles, take onchocerciasis or river blindness, which is just like 50 kilometers away from here, people are still suffering from onchocerciasis. You have a simulium that transmits an infective larvae of less than 1 millimeter of length, and then it develops into a worm of 70 centimeters of length and sitting in subcutaneous tissues here. And these worms live for more than 10 years. And they will always produce offspring, and the current drugs only target those offspring. So you have to come back over and over again over a lengthy time period to eliminate, because the worms will reproduce their offspring, and the offspring is transmitted. So what we need are drugs against the long-lived adult worms, and this is a long-term process, and only by the fact that over the last 10 years, there have been funders in place that have seen that and realized that you cannot do drug development with like 3-year projects that end, but you have to have a longer view, 10 years and longer. Then you can actually develop new drugs from the preclinics to the clinics. And I think you have to go back once. You see it better on the monitor. You see that we developed the system because there are bacteria in the worms that are these little red dots that you see, as I said, better on the monitor. And we developed our first trials showing that when you use antibiotics like doxycycline, you can deplete these worms from those endobacteria, and such a worm is no longer fertile. You see here uterus branches. They are full here when the patient has not been treated, and worms from a treated patient have no Wolbachia and normally no embryos, or they have little degenerated embryos, and they die much earlier. So this principle allows for the detection of adulticidal drugs. And as I said, it takes a long time. If you really want to do drug development, you need several years of preclinical development and then several years of clinical development. But we are establishing that. And now there are several drugs from AbbVie, one from Bayer, and one that has yet no pharmaceutical partner, oxvendazole, in the clinical trials and in phase 2 already. Some are already in Ghana, and phase 1 trials to follow for other antibiotics and other drugs in the pipeline. And without the ping pong of clinical trials done here in Ghana with my colleague Alex Debra and others, to show that actually the principle of Wolbachia depletion works in humans, we would not have received the funding for new drug development as it is now. And we hope that in the coming years, 5 years or so, we will have finally new registered drugs after 40 years, where the last drug, actually a veterinary drug, has been repurposed for human use. So that is something we have, of course, been funding through different formats like the BMBF research networks in sub-Saharan Africa, where we also established better knowledge for clinical trials. And this is how this is usually done. You have an approach to the patients, you find the patients, you see how they are infected. Some have really suffering from from dermatitis because they mount an immune response against the millions of worm larvae. Others are tolerant, immunosuppressed, and show normal skin, like this lady here. So the studies usually go that you nodulectomize, so you take out the worm nodules, and then you later analyze them. And this is also part of our different trials that we do. And the other one is the Sub-Saharan African network of BMBF, where it is about the morbidity of the elephantiasis, where we have shown that if you add doxycycline to your hygiene protocols, you can actually revert from severe stages to early stages if you do that early enough. If an elephantiasis has already progressed too much, then it's no longer possible to revert, but this applies for many other chronic diseases. And a major aspect is also the morbidity management. And as I said already, this will rely more or less on the endemic countries. The drug donation and therapies, we are in the good situation that many big companies actually donate drugs and vaccines. So the responsibility with the endemic countries is the distribution. But here it is more or less all reliant on the health systems to provide that. And we have a grant from the partner federal state, North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany, to actually promote the hygiene training and mitigate the suffering of the people. And this is also something very important. And we, because it's of the responsibility of the countries, you need to know where your people are and where your sick people are. And Dr. Linda Batzer, who has been very active also in the organization of this event, has developed an interactive voice response system, so buzzword digital health, where the community volunteers can report cases in a structured format. So they are provided with a simple mobile phone and they link on to a voice system that asks the questions. And when you do that, you can structure the nature of your questions. And in the end, people always answer in the same way. So you have structured data that you can load into data sheets. And I think we have talked a lot about SORMAs and other databases that we need in order to know better what an early alert of new epidemics or disease massment. And this is one way that is not only necessary, cannot only be used for entities, but can also, of course, be used for pandemics. And this is where we meet with our different pillars. This is, I think, one of the examples. And we could show, or Linda could show, that there is a much better, almost 10 times as high reporting of morbidity if you use this system over paper. And one other aspect has not been mentioned today. I think we are talking a lot about early detection in the periphery. Medical doctors are not so frequent in the periphery. You know that because they would like to stay in the big cities where the big medicine is going. But for detection of outbreaks in the periphery, you also should rely on nurses. And I therefore congratulate you to the nursing program that you have established at KNUST. I think it's an important gap that has to be closed. And we also put that as an argument in our application that we need also to involve the nursing sector to train them to know better what symptoms to look for, and then, for example, use digital reporting systems. And then we might advance and save the time necessary that we are not taken by surprise of new pandemics. Yeah, so this I wanted to mention. The other is, of course, advocacy. And this is some examples of advocacy we are doing with the German network against NTDs to keep the awareness in German politics that NTDs are important. And yesterday I was informed that the new coalition treaty is ready to be approved from our new government. And we will have NTDs at poverty and neglected tropical diseases as one point written out on page 151, for those who want to read it, that this is still a necessity and we have to collaborate here. I mean, no question. I think there will be on many edges in the treaty, in the coalition treaty, the pandemic prevention also, but this is also important. And I already told you about the North Rhine-Westphalia government's partnership with Ghana. And because we have this project, I think I was invited to a dinner with your president, Akufo-Addo, and we could already talk about the G-WAC. So when you have the next meeting with him, you know that, and he was well aware. And I think this is very good. So we have from both sides also to address our politicians, because if the funding does not continually flow, then we cannot continue our projects for another 20 years, which I hope we will do. Thank you very much for your attention.
Our last presentation is on the topic Understanding the Pandemic in Africa, Focus on Social Sciences Health System. Shall we please welcome Dr. John Amwesi.
Thank you very much for having me. I know the time is fast spent, so I'll try to go through it as quickly as possible. I just greet in the same order that my predecessors did, observing all the protocols. I'm not a social scientist, as many of you know, but I'm just trying to prick our minds a bit about the way we think about pandemics, particularly the COVID-19 pandemic, which continues to ravage the world and has really challenged the ways in which we think about doing science, and also should inform the way we go about our collaborations. We actually, can I have the slides showing? Thank you very much. Yeah, there were predictions of doom and gloom in Africa when COVID struck. I was personally petrified about what could happen in Africa. I remember waking up several times in the middle of the night and just sitting on my bed, thinking that this is truly the end of the world and Africa was going to have it really bad. But it did not and has not happened like so 2 years down the line. We like to think that interventions by our governments in Africa are largely to account for this in terms of the lockdowns and the things that we put in place at the airport. And yes, these were the right things to do. They were done beautifully. They were done well. They have been sustained. But when you parse it open, you realize that it doesn't completely explain what we are seeing. And it begs the question, what is really going on? We saw similar measures being put in place by countries. Even Germany enjoyed relative success during the first wave relative to other parts of Africa compared to the UK. Obviously, the UK took a different path and decided to go in the herd immunity way and then did a U-turn. Germany was much stricter from the beginning and so enjoyed success. But eventually, the pandemic caught up with Germany, and we can see the new wave, which is not looking very good for Germany and Austria and other countries. Brazil, started celebrating a bit too early, and then they had the shock of their lives. When things started panning out in Africa and realized that it wasn't as bad, it was thought that the same would apply to India because the same picture was being seen. But down the line, we saw how hard it hit India. So there are many questions that we need to ask ourselves. And I've already talked about some of these things. The death from the pandemic, approximately 5 million plus to date. A lot of things going on globally, and I've showed some of these slides before. The effects of climate change, recently the floods, not only in Germany, but also in Africa. Madagascar experienced some really bad floods, and we've had our own fair share of floods in Ghana, in Accra, and in Kumasi. But when and also the advancements, the global advancements that we have in artificial intelligence and all that we know, and yet still we suffer from these pandemics. The picture in Africa is very interesting. And when you look at it, it gives you a sneak peek into what might really be happening, both in terms of what we know being the tip of the iceberg, as well as the fact that we really do not know what is accounting for what we see. If you look at this, you realize that it seems that the more economically advanced the country is, the redder it is. So is there some kind of a socioeconomic gradient there, or is it an artificial gradient? These are some of the questions that you ask yourself. The first case in Africa was detected in Egypt. Of course, Egypt is known as one of the powerhouses in Africa economically. You see how deep red South Africa is, which means that it must have borne the brunt of the epidemic in Africa. But is there anything so special about South Africa that makes it different from Zimbabwe and Swaziland and the others, or Botswana? I would argue not very much, really. So what is accounting for some of the things we are seeing? Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought forth many challenges to our continent. I'll not spend too much time on these because we know them very well, but it's also what we call an opportunity for the big reset. We can do things completely different. We can change the way we think about things and the way we do things. And so all these opportunities, all these challenges are actually opportunities to do things very differently. And in order to press home these arguments, I wanted to take a step back and look at the example of Ebola. The example of Ebola. Now, I like to call COVID-19 the big leveler as compared to Ebola. With Ebola, there were limited countries at risk, and these were very poor countries in West Africa. And we know GWAC is looking at West Africa. But with COVID, everybody was, so to speak, equally at risk. The susceptibles were all over the world, if you're looking at your typical SEIR model. And we're all interested in finding the same remedies. Vaccines were being sought after, drugs were being sought after, people were looking for herbal treatments and all kinds of things. The knowledge about the virus was limited, and everybody was literally groping in the dark. And then ultimately, a lot of mistakes were made. Some of the mistakes I've already mentioned, like in the UK, in Brazil, and Recently, I've heard that New Zealand will be opening up again in April 2022 because they've still been pursuing a zero COVID policy. I don't know how long any country can hold on to a zero COVID policy. Of course, if you're in Oceania, you can afford to do this for longer than in other parts of the world. So would we say we were fairly lucky with Ebola because it did not spread as far as we thought it would? In Ghana, we're thought to be perhaps among those at highest risk of Ebola because of our position within West Africa, our proximity to Nigeria that had a scare, and then also with the large Liberian population that we have in Ghana. And if you look at it carefully, cumulatively or together, Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone had 11,000 plus deaths. Nigeria and Senegal had just 8 deaths. And then Ghana, there were no deaths at all. Were we lucky? Well, if you try to look at this within the framework of socioeconomics or economic indices, and you look at the Human Development Index, you may argue that you see some, you may be able to see some relationships over here, but maybe not so strong in terms of the higher the HDI value, perhaps the lower the number of cases, but not exactly so. But perhaps for the GNI, in terms of purchasing power parity per capita, you see it more strongly in that the higher the GNI, the less the cases. So it seems that there is clearly a socioeconomic story going on there. These are just very crude ways of looking at things. Now, if you, and you can look at these in greater detail and find that there definitely is something going on in there. The poorer the country, the worse hit they were. But if you fast forward and look at COVID within the same frame, and this time I used Ghana and Nigeria because Ghana was at risk of Ebola and we never had a case, and Nigeria is much closer to Ghana and had a scare. And then you look at the US, Germany, Japan, Cuba, it seems to be completely different in that the poorer the country, if I put it that way, perhaps the less the cases. And of course, Cuba seems to be an outlier. Cuba, as we know, has a very robust public health system. And even though they have a relatively low GNI, and you compare that with the COVID death per capita to other countries, it begins to point at something that beyond just the economic advancement, there are some deliberate factors that would influence ultimately the risk of an epidemic or pandemic. I need to move a bit faster, so I'll move on. And this begs the question of how do we interpret the numbers or the pandemic in Africa? That's why I put in inverted commas understanding the pandemic, because we really do not understand it. A lot of things we don't know, and we still have to try and find out. A lot of it also has to do with the numbers that we have available. Are these numbers reliable? Well, they are what we have, but to what extent do they actually tell the picture? So far, retrospective analysis or seroprevalence studies are showing very clearly that the pandemic was actually very rife, was alive and well in Africa. We're having seroprevalence levels not very different from what prevails in Europe, which shows that the infection rates were actually just as high. But how come that what we actually saw in terms of hospitalization rates and death rates were not commensurate? One may argue that, well, it's poor data collection, but I always argue that as for death, you cannot hide. In Brazil, they tried to hide the deaths, and then the satellite images were showing all the graves that were being dug. We did not see that in Africa. I mean, there's something that we still do not understand. Looking at some of the things that were done in Ghana, very impressive actions were taken right at the beginning with the closures and the travel bans and various measures that were taken. A couple of other things also helped us. I'll just scroll through these without really mentioning them. Hopefully you can see them on your screen because of time. And many of you who also flew in from Germany and other parts of the world could testify to ongoing surveillance at the airport with antigen-based testing, which does not happen in Europe currently. You just have to have your vaccination and you are good to go. So a number of things really went in our favor before the pandemic, and also during the pandemic, a number of very important activities went on very, very quickly, including the setting up of a special task force at the office of the president. I will have to just go very quickly because of time, but we didn't get everything right. There were some things that I like to say we got wrong, or we would argue, did we get them wrong? And some of these were conspiracy theories regarding the reality of the virus. But this is not only limited to Ghana. All over in Europe and North America and Asia, they have been grappling, or we have been grappling with the issue of conspiracy theories. And this actually started with the anti-vaccine movements in Europe and in America. I remember this was in the February of 2020, which was my last travel before borders were closed. And I was in Le Pensier in Paris, and the taxi driver who took me was busy talking about how he would never have his children vaccinated. Not against COVID, because COVID was not at that time a big problem, but he did not want to get his children vaccinated against the normal childhood killer diseases. And so already there's this ingrained view by some all over the world. Maybe I should go back here, just talk about one more thing, just the limitation in access to data. So it's a very big problem to us, the researchers, in order to inform some of the work that we do. So now taking a deeper dive as I try and conclude, looking at the numbers in Ghana specifically, we did some modeling work which was published in PLOS about 3 weeks ago, and we tried to juxtapose the R0, a proverbial R0, against the positivity rate. And you can see how, and we tried to put this against various measures that were put in place. At some points, the measures seem to explain a decrease in R0. At some points, it becomes a bit unexplainable. And you actually see an increasing positivity rate, even in the face of a decreasing R0. Of course, this has to do with the testing regime and the instability in the testing regime. If there was a constant testing approach, then you could really, what you expect to find is a positivity rate that would be in line with what you expect your transmission rates to be, as evidenced by your R0. This is also the same thing, but this is juxtaposed against the test results on a daily basis that were shown. And this is just to show you that the data that we have just does not allow you to arrive at conclusions as to what really happened, and therefore what should have been done and what should be done. And it is a worrying situation. If you go further and you try and go forward on the assumption that the early data in the beginning of the pandemic was highly reliable, and therefore you use that as a sort of a proxy of some sort, using what we call the jackknife estimate against the further estimates, you realize that there's a sharp departure in that the positivity rate seems to have been significantly overestimated. And this you can only do just a little distance beyond the early stages, but it just gives you a sneak peek into how whatever we have available as evidence might not really be telling us the exact picture. And I can show this for Ghana, and this mimicked in several other African countries. These are results from some work that we're doing on seroprevalence. This is the Kumasi data being led by my colleague, Tony. And it just shows you how high the seroprevalence is in Kumasi. We've just started analyzing the Accra samples at KCCR, and it's not very different. It's actually crossing 40% seroprevalence. And these are samples that were taken months ago. We're starting the work in Tamale as well. And so the argument is that how come that the seroprevalence does not mirror the rates that we saw in terms of hospitalization and deaths? And this brings the question of these social determinants of health, which I need to go through very quickly, and why I think that really this is where the rubber hits the road, and where the answers can be found regarding how we can explain, understand what is going on with the pandemic in Africa. And these are really the non-medical factors. And we often focus on the medical factors or the veterinary factors. But there are these softer issues which might really be the ones that explain why we are seeing what we see. And I would that as G-WAC, we also put an emphasis on this. And this is why we are using a One Health approach. And this is also why we want interdisciplinarity. Yesterday, we were having discussions regarding the possibility of joint supervision between qualitative researchers, quantitative researchers across disciplines, so that the student will really be well baked and come away with a clear understanding of the way in which human beings, animals, and the environment we share interact together to influence what could be a pandemic risk. This is just my last slide right now. And well, the last but one, I must say, to be honest. But this is just a picture from showing the social determinants of health and how they really do impact on all sectors of society, and particularly on health. And the last thing I wanted to show is these building blocks of the health system, which we are very familiar with, and how, in my view, there seems to be the missing aspect, which is the research. And this is where I see G-WAC coming in. Research really would encompass all these building blocks and should be able to inform every single one of them. But there are challenges to the conduct of this research. Challenges to conduct this research, which I've enumerated a few of. And as G-WAC, we need to be fully conscious of what these challenges may be, right from ethical clearance delays. I'm glad to say that here at KNUST, our ethics, a very competent ethics committee, is normally very fast out of the blocks and does their best to facilitate things, but it's not always very easy because normally you need ethics at different levels. Not that they intentionally delay, but it's a process, and we just need to make sure that we're able to jump through those hoops. The politics is always in our faces, especially when there's interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity. There's the academic politics, there's the national politics, there's the regional politics, and then of course the almighty global politics we'll have to deal with, and all these others which I have already made mention of in one way or the other. So I'll just end with this quote, which I made earlier at another conference, that COVID-19 is what I call the super wicked challenge of the decade, to which only a concerted One Health approach spearheaded by a new multidisciplinary army of One Health professionals could offer insights and solutions. And I think G-WAC will offer this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Amoesi. We are gradually wrapping up on this program. I will respectfully invite the Pro Vice Chancellor to come up stage and then present this to the Ambassador of Germany. So what this signifies is that the Pro Vice Chancellor is representing the G-WAC team here at KNUST, and the ambassador is representing the G-WAC team and partners. So he presents this to the ambassador, and then when we are done, the others could be presented to all members. So Your Excellency, please come up stage.
Your Excellency, hopefully you're not tired receiving these things from us. This is the second time I'm going to decorate you in less than 2 months, I believe. So
I apologize for not bringing the tie.
Oh no! Actually, you promised. I remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, point on behalf of the Vice Chancellor and the entire team of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, I present to you once again the statuette of the first President of the Republic. Let me grab the microphone because it's important that I say a few words. And I remember saying this to him the last time as well. I don't mind repeating it. And for as long as you keep coming, Crow will keep doing this.
Yes, joy and repetition.
Right. So the statuette of the first President of the Republic, to whom this university is named after, And for your information, those of you, our friends from Germany who do not know, we're currently the best university in West Africa, and well placed for G-WAC to be located. And then, of course, we have the stool. It's our traditional symbol of saying that you're welcome. Take a seat and please don't go away. Thank you, Your Excellency. Oh, actually, there's more. All right, please, let's put this one in there, and then let me finish with my job. So there's, I drink coffee, and I know that you drink coffee too. Yeah, so this is for your coffee in the morning. And then, of course, we have the KNUST-TEK tie. Hoping that next time you replace yours with this one, and you remember to bring mine.
Please don't tell the Vice Chancellor.
No, I won't say that. I won't say that to her. And please don't say that to the Vice Chancellor.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ambassador has said he will be here in December. And it looks like when he comes, he will then have the 70th anniversary cloth. By the time he's done with the strips here, his wardrobe is full of KNUST stuff. I would invite the Provost College of Health Sciences to give us his closing remarks. A round of applause.
We started in the morning, now it's afternoon. So good afternoon. I will be brief with my closing remarks, trying to summarize whatever was said. And then we can then leave here to the Bwedi side of our campus to commission the office, the G-WAC office. So there was a presentation by the director of G-WAC, and he put emphasis on the health threats across national boundaries and the need for us to come together and address it. And this was also initiated at the G20 meeting in Hamburg 2017, and the need for the German government to set up these centers with a focus on PhD training, short courses, exchange of students and staff, and also emphasis on international networking, basically what the center will be doing. And then he also briefly touched on the relevance and then the sustainability of the center, which we are all keen to work on. His Excellency attacked the importance of Ghana when it comes to trade, and then the fact that we are the premier partner. I like the word premier partner when it comes to Germany dealing with Africa. And we happen to be the second in Africa, which is very key. And he's there to facilitate this cooperation and collaboration. The fact that we have Ghanaians being trained in Germany, and then most of them return and also come and impact on the training of our people. And also the relationship doesn't end. Normally, it's a continuing relationship. That is very key. And then we also had a presentation from Professor Hartmann on the immunological science and systems. I will not go much into that, but the key thing that I just want us to take home is the need for us to create resilient system to tackle global pandemic, and also the focus on interdisciplinary research and One Health approach. The representative of the advisory board, Professor Richard Phillips, inform us about the the role that KCCR played and is also continuing to play when it comes to the management of the COVID-19, especially the testing, and the fact that the center has been training a lot of postgraduate students. And then also the need for us to tackle other emerging diseases when in terms of especially the infectious disease, and then the need for postgraduate training in those areas. There's a need for capacity building that almost all the speakers put emphasis on. We need to encourage that. The Pro-Vice Chancellor also alluded to the fact that the university management was so happy and grateful when the announcement of the award of the 2.7 million euros for the creation of the center, when the management was informed. And the fact that the opportunities that this center will bring, the university is going to support that, especially in the area of collaborative research, interdisciplinary research, teamwork, and others. And also the fact that the university, in collaboration with other partners, are trying to achieve the SDG goals 2 and 3. And the last aspect of his address was on the sustainability of the center, how there's a need for us to address that. And with this coming from the Pro-Vice Chancellor, I believe the university management is keen on that and would do as much as possible to sustain the center even after the closure of the funding. And also, he also informed us about our 70th anniversary and the fact that we are dwelling on the collaborative research in order to achieve our vision and mission. And we, the university management is also appreciative of what the German government has been doing for the country and that of the university. With Professor Christian Drosten also focused on the capacity building and also the fact that the what Professor Phillips said should be taken into consideration. When it comes to pandemics and then viruses, there were 3 approaches, that is processes: adaptation to humans, sporadic acquisition, and viral diversity. And he summarized his presentation with the title, "The Knowledge Gap, Aerosol in these areas, aerosol transmission, population susceptibility to humans, sporadic transmission, phenotype of reserved bond viruses." So that was his concluding slide. Professor Akim also dwell on the need for us to work on the neglected tropical diseases with focus on onchocerciasis and filariasis and the various efforts that they've been taking, especially introducing new candidates for the management of some of these neglected diseases. And then he ended up with the advocacy aspect when it comes to policymakers and stakeholders. Dr. John Amuesi also took us through this topic, that is understanding the pandemic in Africa. The fact that we've had about 5 million COVID-19 deaths, and also the experience that we had with Ebola epidemic in West Africa, and the fact that Ghana, based on what we did, there wasn't any case reported. And then he went ahead to also explain what the various interventions that the government undertook, and the fact that we also had some, let me say, she put it as we got some of the issues also wrong, and the fact that the issues are being addressed. The issue with, especially with researchers, that is a limitation to data when you want to get data to publish. But with this, they've been able to get information and data to do some modeling, which they've been able to publish. With this, I take this opportunity to appreciate the presence of all in this inauguration. We believe that this is not going to be the end. I've seen individual networking and collaboration, especially among the postgraduate students who are here, is very key. Try and connect with the scientists, and then the university management will connect with the policy makers, and so that we can move ahead with this. I say Ayuko for honoring our invitation. Thank you.
Before our closing prayer, I would want to specially acknowledge the presence of the former provost of the College of Health Sciences. He was also a former pro-vice chancellor, and currently the president of the West African College of Surgeons. Ladies and gentlemen, please applaud Professor Peter Donko. So we shall now peacefully have a closing prayer. Please welcome the Dean, School of Veterinary Medicine, Professor Benjamin Emikpe.
Let's bow our heads to pray. Father, I want to thank you for the privilege of life. And thank you for how far you have helped us, especially today, when the 25th of November, marking the inauguration of G-WAC. I want to thank you for what you have done for KNUST, what you have done for Ghana, what you have done for the universities in Germany, and what you have done for Germany. Father, I want to thank you for how you have helped us, helping all our invited guests to travel down safely for this inauguration. We pray that as G-WAC starts, that the Lord will give us wisdom to be able to do that in which we are planned successfully for emergency preparedness, such that we will be able to contain any pandemic in future. We pray that as they have come and about to leave, that you will be with them, and all the glory and all the honor shall be given unto you. Thank you for what you have done, and thank you for what you will continue to do, and thank you for the success of G-WAC. In Jesus' mighty name we pray.
So we've come to the end of the first part of the program. When the session comes to an end and we go out, we'll arrange ourselves for a group photograph and then head to the Faculty of Allied Health Sciences to commission the G-WAC Secretariat. So this is it. Thank you all very much for coming, and have the rest of the day in a good way. So shall we please go out for the group photograph? Let's go.